I think for the leader and I, we wanted to come together as a bipartisan study, and the main thing was to look at what had happened, where we were before, and how do we make this better for our constituents in the future. And I feel very confident from what came out of today that we're moving in the right directions and got steps in place, and we'll both be monitoring those to make sure they happen in the future.
A lot of people were, of course, very upset. Your offices were working with constituents. They were, of course, trying to deal with as many people as possible. But there were a lot of forces that were outside of the control of OESC when this all happened. Is that correct?
That is correct. And what we heard today was that the mainframe that OESC was using when we went into the pandemic in March was 42 years old. Some of the systems still worked on cobalt. So they started behind the curve simply because of the mainframe and the materials and the machinery that they actually had at OESC. That made it very, very difficult.
Going forward, of course, they've got a fund in place to help with not just the modernization, but the transformation. In other words, to be able to deal with whole new ways and whole new issues and whole new programs. But there is another issue of concern moving forward over the next few months, and that is the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund.
Yes, the biggest concern we had is in statute we've got a trigger that once the fund hits $25 million, it automatically goes across for all employees up to a 33%, which would be devastating and basically a nuclear option. And so what we've done is reached out to the governor and the executive branch, and they're going to use $100 million of the CARE funds to shore that up to make sure that at least in the next several months that we don't hit that $25 million trigger. And then when you couple that with the going to a declassification in the rates of a 0.03% for 72% of the employers up to 7.5% increase for about 0.2% of the employers, will raise about $550 to $600 million over the next year to get us back to a safe level. You got to remember, thankfully, we started out with about a $1.3 billion trust fund, which was the fifth most solvent in the country. And while other states, 21 right now, are actually broke and having to go borrow, so they're having to pass interest on to their employers out there, Oklahoma was positioned so that we haven't hit that, and we want to make sure that we continue to shore that up and get back to a healthy level in case we ever go into a pandemic or something like we saw back in 2009.
So it sounds like moving forward that a lot of the lessons learned from the pandemic were learned very quickly, and you feel pretty optimistic about the agency's abilities to handle whatever comes out over the next few months.
I think what we heard today was that the agency has adapted quite well. They have made adjustments. They have been innovative in what they were doing. They've had a very good relationship with our congressional delegation, especially Senator Langford has been very proactive in working with them. They speak on a regular basis. And I think that they have adapted quite well, all things considered, and moving forward, we're going to see that continued innovation.